Hi, welcome to Expanding Podcast. This is a place where we meet the people behind the brands that are breaking boundaries and growing internationally. I'm really excited today to welcome Galen. He's a Chief Revenue Officer at Teecino. If you haven't heard of Teecino, they create amazing caffeine-free alternatives to tea and coffee, which I know tastes amazing because I've pretty much, I think Galen tried every single one of them. I have to say, I really do enjoy them. So hopefully we'll hear today about the story behind Ticino and how it started, and some of the challenges that you've faced, and how basically you've grown into a top brand in the herbal coffee and tea space. And maybe look into your international journey, what that looks like from tackling things like the product and labeling compliance, your VAT, and talk about the logistics side of things.
Looking forward to it. Happy to talk about all the above.
Fantastic. So let's get going. I'm wondering if you can tell me a bit about Ticino and your inspiration behind, or the inspiration behind its creation, and how it started.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you, the elevator pitch, if you will. But again, yeah, my name is Galen MacDougall. I am our Chief Revenue Officer and have had the pleasure of working at Teecino for 15 years now. But even before that, I had the other great pleasure of being the son of the founder of Teecino, and so Caroline MacDougall is our founder and CEO or co-CEO at the moment. We can talk about that more later. But I have seen Teecino since its inception, which was 30 years ago. This is our 30th year, and it literally was inspired by a dream that my mom had one night. And in the dream, she said to someone she was working with to develop herbal teas at that time in her career in the mid 90s. She said in the dream, "The next product I create will be a caffeine free cappuccino, and the name of it is Teecino."
Right.
And she woke up and she thought, wow, that's a cool concept.
Yeah.
Herbs that are roasted and ground like coffee, but aren't made from coffee beans. And you can make a cappuccino out of it that's naturally caffeine free because she's very caffeine sensitive. And so it was literally dream inspired. And actually, I'm in my office here. We have one of our old banners on the back. I don't know if you can see
Oh,
this, but
cool. Yeah.
as ever dream of a coffee free cappuccino. And well, maybe now it could be a more common concept. Certainly in the 90s, I don't think anybody had dreamt of one except for my mom.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the inspiration. And here we are 30 years later as one of the top selling coffee alternative brands in the US and expanding internationally. And it's been a wonderful journey to have been a part of it, starting from myself even before I got involved full time, doing sampling events in stores and going to trade shows as a kid, and throughout high school, and then after college, my mom managed to rope me into the business full time, and I've since worked my way up to the top of our head of sales and executive team. So it's been a great journey, and it's a great product. Just real quick, in case people haven't seen it, these are sort of our two different package types. One is a loose all-purpose grind, as we call it, because it brews just like ground coffee. That's in this bag here.
Yeah.
And the tea box is individual tea bags, which yeah, I do. Usually, I have these things on my desk for showing people. This would just be like a regular tea bag, except the ingredients on the inside are obviously different than your typical peppermint or chamomile tea, and so it's sort of an herbal tea that tastes like coffee.
And you have lots of varieties, right? Because I know I've tried a fair few of them.
We do. We have lots of varieties. We have over 45 different blends now.
Wow.
And each of those blends is available across multiple pack sizes and SKUs. So, yeah, we've got over 200 SKUs in our system. And not all of those international just yet. We're more selective on how we expand there, and we'll chat about that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Were you initially just selling across the states, in all states? How did that start? Did it start in one area and then you expanded from there?
Yeah, for sure. So we're based in Southern California. Specifically, we were founded in Santa Barbara. That's where I grew up, and now our office is a little bit south of that. On the other side of this wall, or a couple walls over, is our warehouse and manufacturing as well. So we do all of our own packaging in house. That's evolved over the course of our 30 years. Initially, we started with co-packers, which is common in consumer packaged goods for food and beverage.
Yeah.
And then at one point, we got to a point where we expanded. We wanted to bring our manufacturing in house, but yeah, the initial launch in Southern California did start locally. And at that time in the 90s, I mean, there was no e-commerce business. And so it was really in natural health food stores and some specialty grocery chains. At that time, Whole Foods wasn't even what it is today. And so Mrs. Gooch's, for example, is one of the, I call OG, original natural food stores in Southern California that later got acquired by Whole Foods. But Mrs. Gooch's was selling Teecino in the mid 90s. So it really started as a brick and mortar distributor channel strategy. And I should say, with a bit of focus on food service too, cafes and whatnot. Caroline had quite an affinity for, being able to enjoy a delicious cappuccino, but she couldn't do the caffeine. So there was Starbucks popping up all over the place in the 90s,
Yeah.
and she envisioned the, caffeine-free herbal cappuccino that is Teecino being served in food service and such, cafes and restaurants. While that happened a bit, it was clear that the distribution strategy to scale needed to go through brick and mortar stores and grocery stores. And then in the early 2000s is when we started to introduce e-commerce directly through our own website, as well as channels like Amazon, but that probably was about 2011. And even then, we were a very early adopter on the Amazon platform before, what we have today is so many brands just go
Yeah.
digitally native, do direct to consumer to start with.
Wow. So from expanding across the states and through e-commerce, what was the decision you made to decide to take the brand overseas?
Yeah, it's sort of come along organically as we've expanded and seen opportunities. Um, we started in the U.S. obviously, well, we started in California, and we sort of expanded to national in the U.S. And then added on Canada as sort of the second or first international territory, if you will, but not too far afield from us, of course. And then we had gained also importing partners in sort of select areas where we could find a key partner that understood the brand potential, but also that in a niche category like ours, it requires some additional education and effort besides just being a distributor of as many different food products as possible, right? So we found some key partners in other countries. That came along naturally, meeting through trade shows and various international connections that Caroline had from her prior experience in ingredient sourcing. So then came Australia, New Zealand, then Mexico, and we hadn't really been able to capitalize on the EU and UK market for a while anyway. A couple dabbling attempts, but mostly due to regulatory packaging challenges and having to do a whole new set of packaging for those markets. So we just weren't ready infrastructure wise to take all that on until more recently. And particularly as we saw the opportunity through Amazon and their international marketplaces, that it made sense in the last few years to really pursue EU and UK with renewed vigor. And a key partner in Expandly, of course, to help enable that. And and so, yeah, even at this point, it's still selective as to what packages we're offering in the EU and UK, but we're continuing to expand that catalog, if you will, based on where we're seeing success. So I guess to answer your question, it was a timing thing and getting to a point where we were really ready internally, systems wise, as well as additional packaging design and regulatory wise. The EU and UK made sense in the last 2 years. Well, we started really 3 years ago working on it, but it didn't come into full play until we started working with Expandly just over a year ago.
Okay. How did you identify which countries you wanted to target first? Did you have a clear idea, or did that sort of happen organically?
Well, for the EU and UK anyway, it was basically dictated by the primary marketplaces that Amazon has, and also the largest populations.
Yeah.
So while we do have, let's see, I do have one of the international packages. It's hard to see, but there's like
Yeah.
8 different languages on this package, right? So we had to make a special package for that, and we enabled selling in I think it's 8 EU countries plus the UK, by having these 8 different languages, including English, on the package. And so that gave us the widest net possible through Amazon's fulfillment network. But really, we knew that, and what has been confirmed in the last 6 months, a little bit more now since launching, that we knew that the largest population and best countries were really going to be Italy, France, Germany, and the UK.
Yeah.
And so those were and actually Spain is in there, I guess, as a fifth. Yeah. So those were the primary demographics that we focused on and are continuing to focus on now in the international market. And it's just because the size and also where Amazon has fulfillment hubs.
And did you tackle the VAT first? Was that your first port of call, looking at
We did.
VAT
Yeah,
registration?
we had to get the VATs for all of these different countries, and that was quite a process. That fortunately we had your guys' hand in to help us along the way. We actually had attempted with a separate agency we had been connected with a couple years ago. We attempted with them to get our VATs, and it just wasn't playing through. And I think it was partly a project management thing on our side, and also them not being as buttoned up as we thought they were initially. So we spent about a year trying to get VATs and only being successful in 1 or 2 countries. And then it was when we're like, okay, we need to shift partners here. That's when we found Expandly. And it still took us about a year of work to get all of our VATs in order, all 9 of those basically that I've mentioned across the EU countries and the UK. So working with your team pretty extensively since May of last year, so just about a year. And it wasn't until February or March that we got our final VAT registrations in 2 of the countries that we've been waiting on since May of last year. So it's a process, and you really need to stay on it and need to have the right folks that know how to work with the authorities to get everything filed. And then on our side, get all the different notarized documents that are needed. And every single country's requests and requirements from a documentation level are a little different. So yeah, it was challenging. Took a little longer than we initially expected, but now we've fortunately got that VAT registration side behind us.
I think some of those countries take longer than others, don't they? And
yeah, certainly. I don't know if it matters to call any one of them out or not, but but some really took us a long time, and we couldn't get answers for months and months, even though they had everything they needed,
yeah.
and the timeline. And yeah, so I guess that's part of the process, and part of the learning for me was, a realistic timeline of what it takes to truly expand internationally and do it right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we do see that with definitely almost some countries being quicker than others in terms of being able to turn things around.
Yeah.
In terms of your labeling, and you've got lots of ingredients within your products, right, and lots of different SKUs. How did you manage that whole sort of label and product compliance? Because obviously, again, the different countries have different. The EU has different rules about what you can put and what you can and can't say on packaging. Can you explain that a bit to me, please?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in general, we had to simplify our packaging quite a bit from all of the content that's on it. I think of our packaging as, well, let's see, there's some writing there, and there's some, lots of writing there and stuff. So content heavy from a copy standpoint, but we had to get rid of a lot of that because we weren't going to be able to translate it all into all languages. So there just wasn't space on the package to do that, right? So we sort of broke it down to what is the bare minimum that's needed on the package, like the ingredient list and the preparation instructions. Actually, I think even the preparation instructions are at this QR code. That was one way that we could work around that. So you can go to another website to get that. But the nutrition facts box and the ingredients were the primary things. So anyway, any type of claim or sort of selling point, health benefit, most of that just came off the package by default. But in order to create space for all the languages on the other, necessary elements. But really, we worked closely with your team at Expandly, and so on the regulatory compliance side, I mean, we didn't know what every single country was going to approve or not, and so at the end of the day, our sort of generic multilingual package, as I call it, didn't have a lot of claims because there wasn't space for it, but also still went through a review from your team that was able to say, yeah, this will fly in all the different countries, basically.
So were you able to keep the same ingredients in your teas, or did you have to change anything at all?
Yeah, fortunately, the ingredients were all the same. I think there are certain blends out of our 45 that have some ingredient that is not on the safe food list for the EU, for example. And so we just didn't include those.
Yeah.
We're currently only actually have six SKUs that are set up for the EU and UK Amazon marketplace. And those six were selected based on what top performers we already knew were available, and the ingredient list as well. But we didn't have to actually change the formula of that same flavor, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So are you mainly selling in the EU now, in the UK, on Amazon?
Yes, that's correct. Just on Amazon at the moment, although I've begun some conversations again to uh, utilize the expertise of your team as well as maximize efficiency on our overseas shipments. It's very expensive, as you can imagine, to send product to the UK from here in California.
Yeah.
And so we are now looking to expand and create more scalability through some brick and mortar partners. We haven't gotten anyone particularly specifically on board that I can mention yet, but we have targeted a few specialty retailers that we want to work with a broker in your region to then present to on our behalf. And if we can do that, then it will expand the business into brick and mortar beyond just the e-commerce. But uh, because Amazon can do the fulfillment across such a widespread region, and because we've seen such success in Amazon here in the U.S. and in Canada, it just made sense that that was the natural progression first. And yeah, so that's what we did.
Excellent. And are you finding some countries are sort of taking it on better than others so far, or?
Well, certainly it's been confirmed those bigger population countries that I'd mentioned are where it's taken on, better. A little bit slower to start than we had initially hoped, but there's still some sort of stumbling blocks to sort out. Of course, with the extra shipping and premium ingredients, organic certified ingredients that we use,
Yeah.
we do have a higher price point than your typical tea. So we've been having to sort of sacrifice margin a bit to create more demand and trial through the new demographics we're reaching in Amazon International. So besides price, and then also it's only 6 items, whereas we have over 45 different blends in the U.S. So it's just it's slowly growing. I wish we could accelerate it faster, and that's sort of the brick and mortar attempt next. But also we need to expand the catalog and do another round of label compliance review, and actually at the moment we've only introduced this 25 count tea box.
Yeah.
But the next move will be to introduce the herbal coffee grind, and that will give us more the sort of traditional coffee alternative side of our brand that's not currently represented. So anyway, there's catalog expansion that needs to happen in order to fully utilize the potential. But the main countries of the EU with the biggest populations have been the ones that have taken off the most so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely a purchaser here in the UK.
Yeah, good. So you got it through Amazon UK a couple times yourself already? Is that where
Yeah.
you went?
Yeah. I also, it's on I think it was on another website I saw as well.
Yeah, we have some other international partners, particularly iHerb.com. You may
Yeah,
have
I
seen
think
that.
that was the one where I purchased the majority of different blends from.
Yeah, they actually have a wider assortment and sort of a different distribution network, but specialize in international fulfillment. And so, yeah, I shouldn't leave them out of our international expansion journey. We started working with them in about 2015, and their model was always to provide, health products overseas. And so they were kind of an international distributor for us. With them managing all the logistics and compliance on their side, enabled us to just send them our existing packaging, right? But they were definitely a key partner in our international expansion journey, just one that we had a little less control over. And so when we went to the Amazon world after dialing that in the US over about a decade, then we yeah, we decided to do some Amazon on our own accord with partners like yourself as the importer of record.
Excellent. So the plan is to introduce more flavors, more varieties into those locations to expand further,
Yeah,
and also
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's kind of the key as we're seeing here to really scale is that, and one of the beauties of Teecino, one of our, selling points that sets us apart is that we do have such a wide variety of flavors to appeal to anyone's taste preference. But given that we only selected 6 initially, and the EU, we sent in a shipment back in September, so let's call that 8 months ago at this point. And that first shipment is just starting to sell out of certain flavors, and it was also split between the UK and the EU. You have to do 2 different fulfillment centers, and so we're now planning. We've only had that initial shipment, even though it's been 8 months. We're now planning the next one, and in order to capitalize on the next shipment and maximize freight costs, we need to get the packaging for the herbal coffee or all-purpose grind version dialed in, so that we can include that, and then we'll at least have that version in all 6 of the current flavors. So they'd be in both tea and herbal coffee versions. It's the same ingredients in both packages, but different methods of preparation. So we call them different things, and they target different consumers too. One that's a coffee drinker who wants to brew like coffee, another that's a tea drinker who has 20 different teas in their cabinet, just loves herbal beverages, right? So anyway, we have to expand the offerings, and expanding the catalog into the herbal coffee side is what our next move will be, in line with our next shipment, which we anticipate happening in the next month. So we've got some label work to do with your team coming up here.
Fabulous. And it would be nice to see well, even more varieties, although there seems to be.
Yeah, exactly. Or just, I mean, it might be the same flavors, maybe a couple new ones, we'll see. But because it's a different method of preparation, you can get a very different experience from the product when you brew it like coffee versus steep it like tea, 1 cup at a time.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to would like to add at all?
Yeah, I mean,
And we've covered obviously the whole of that expansion journey, haven't we? And how you've sort of tackled the different,
Yeah, for us, I guess I'll just add, it's been an organic and sort of slow growth journey. As I mentioned in the very beginning, we're a family owned and operated business here, and we've been around for a long time, but never had a major influx of venture capital like a lot of brands in today's world have millions of dollars to start out from some venture capitalist that believes in it, and so they can put a lot of marketing dollars all at once behind something and see if it sticks, right? And Teecino has been a much more slow growth opportunity until recent years, when more consumer demand was looking for alternative beverages to coffee and tea. We have doubled the business in the last 4 years, so that's been a accelerated growth rate.
Yeah, great.
But nonetheless, it's forced us to go sort of slow and intentional to make sure that where we invest the dollars, there's a tangible ROI. And going into the international UK and working with partners like yourself was a substantial investment for us that is still just paying itself back. So and it's not something that we could have gone all in and done all 100 packages at once, for example. So we had to be selective, and there's just different strategies, I think, to consumer packaged goods in today's world. Some that can go all in right off the bat, but that's not always best. Sometimes that results in failure, and we get brands that come and go quickly. So for us, it's always been about keeping Teecino stable and steady, and taking on growth when we're ready for that growth with intention. And so the EU and UK Amazon opportunity was something we were ready for and are continuing to capitalize on, and certainly hope that it's has a lot of potential, or a lot more potential, based on the success we've seen in the US. At one point, we were talking with other brands that had done a international expansion. They said, yeah, EU and UK can be about 10% of your USA Amazon business. And if that's the case, we've got a long ways to go, and that's where our target is. But we haven't been able to realize that yet. So we need to continue staying focused and just plug away at it. It just might be a longer runway than we initially anticipated. And that's okay. As I'm saying, we're sort of familiar with that, given that we've been doing this for 30 years and developed a lot of loyal customers along the way, and continue to stay persistent in the journey.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's visibility. It's going into new countries, people becoming more familiar with the brands. Getting a chance to taste it, because I think once people taste it, they're converted, right? It's just like you say,
Yeah,
getting into people's hands and into people's houses.
exactly. Yes, or into people's mouths, as we say in the sampling world. I started my Teecino adventures, well, post college, in the 2011 range, doing demos all over the U.S. That was one of the ways we put Ticino on the map, literally and figuratively. In the U.S. was I demoed over 300 different retailers at that point, and spent a year and a half just road tripping from one store to the next, basically. And during that process, you get to learn a ton about consumer perception and experience and sort of brand receptivity. And also, you learn the value of just getting someone to taste a product like Teecino, which in concept and by just in its core is a very unique experience that we don't have a lot of other products that taste like Teecino out there. And so, but once someone, what I'm trying to say, once someone does taste it and get that first experience, there's a high conversion rate, and people really do enjoy it and understand, wow, this is a delicious beverage that I can drink at another time of the day, or at nighttime if I want something after dinner, but you wouldn't typically go to coffee or whatever, but because of the caffeine. So yeah, it's just about getting people to have that light bulb moment, and oftentimes the easiest way to do that is just through someone tasting and trying the product.
That whole sampling
Yeah.
exercise, isn't it?
Yeah, the sampling is key. And so we can't do that over in the UK so easily right now. But one thing we can do is kind of readjust the strategy to bring the price point down a little bit further, and still cover our bases, but not get the same profit margin we had initially anticipated. And that's what we're experimenting right now, so that we can encourage more people to try it. And then in time, once we've developed that customer base, then you can sort of catch back up either with scalability or by slowly raising your price point a little bit. That's just part of the nature of it. And I think there's a lot of opportunity. It's just prioritizing it all with a relatively small team and a lot of different initiatives to focus on.
Yeah, but it's a great product, and I'm sure it'll be a huge success.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. It's feedback from folks like yourself and all the people that write into us on a regular basis to say, Teecino really made a difference in their lives. Hearing that is what keeps us doing what we're doing. And so it reminds us, even when challenges arise, that we're on the right track, and we need to persevere and keep a product like Teecino available to consumers around the world.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking part in the podcast, Galen. Really,
yes, of course, it's my pleasure. Happy to answer any other.
It's really good to hear the story as well behind it, and
yeah,
let's just hope it goes from strength to strength.
That's right. Yep, we got some good partners in Expandly. We'll see where the brick and mortar world in the UK takes us. Hopefully in the next few months here, although we don't have an exact timeline yet. But certainly we'll be working together to make that next Amazon shipment even bigger than the first, and expand our e-commerce sales that way first.